Hello, everyone. Welcome to FINIS Friday. This is the Silver Lining Edition. I'm going to be your host, Quinn Fitzgerald, and we are here to give you, the global swim community, an uplifting dose of inspiration and innovation during some truly crazy times. So just want to thank everyone for joining us. This is our first broadcast. I'm here in my living room in San Francisco, California. We don't have fancy audio equipment or cameras, but we will do this weekly and we'll make adjustments and improvements, and we really, really want your feedback. We're doing this on a weekly basis to bring together the swim community to learn and grow together each week. And we have some truly amazing guests lined up. Right now, we're all living through a pretty historic pandemic, and we can't swim. We can't go to our pools. We can't see our swim friends. And I think this is unsettling for a lot of us, but we still get up each morning and we do the things we can do. And as we settle into this new routine, we need to find some silver lining in all this. So many of you filled out a short survey telling us where you're finding your silver lining. Some of you are exploring hobbies, you're cooking more, you're doing more dry land, you're spending more time with your family. And at the end of the show, we're going to read aloud the best answer to the survey question, who will win a 1-year subscription to Lane Vision. So at FINIS, we want to use this time to come together as a swim community and introduce you to athletes, coaches, entrepreneurs who are all making an impact on the sport. And for our inaugural show, we have two incredible guests. The first, my childhood friend, 5-time gold medalist, Peirsol. And our second guest is the founder and chief architect of Aspirix. He is the swim dad who invested $1.5 million to create an incredible technology to make his son better and hopefully break Peirsol's 200 back world record. So before I introduce our first guest, I'd like to thank FINIS. FINIS is our presenting sponsor, and they've really been an important part of the swim community since 1993, putting out the most cutting-edge training gear, suits, and apparel. But this podcast isn't about promoting a single brand. It's about celebrating and sharing insights from others who want to help us spread the joy of swimming. So to give us a weekly update on what's happening on the front lines at FINIS here in California, I bring you our founder, John Mix.
Yeah, hi everyone. Hey, this is really fun. Pablo and I started the company as a hobby a long time ago, 27 years ago, I think. And this is something I think I've always thought would be really fun to do. And it's strange that it brings a crisis to make this a reality, but this is a time of crisis. So I'm really happy that it's we're taking the opportunity to make something really good of this time. When it comes to the business front, I want you to know that we have 2 offices in California and 1 in Europe, and everyone's working remote. We're allowing just a couple of guys to go to the warehouse in Europe and the US to process a couple of orders each day that are coming in, but we're not doing much business right now. We're, it's time to take care of the business that we can, but we have to put family first. We have to put our health and wellness first. So I encourage everyone, do your part. We have the shelter-in-place order in California, so it's really minimal. So we're using this time to, bring us all together and do something new. And the bright part is, if we all do our part right now, there's going to come a time in a couple of weeks or a couple of months that the sun's going to shine, and we're going to be, we will have flattened this curve, and we're all going to start swimming again. So that's the bright part. I'm real excited for this first one that we got Aaron joining us. He came by the office a couple months ago, and it's just so fun to hear. It's inspiring. We have so many amazing people in this sport, and there's amazing stories to be told. So to kick it off on a real light-noted, hearty story, like, hey, God, things get tough. I want to tell you something. Pablo and I designed those first monofins, and it was 2 years in the works, and we brought that first monofin out. And Mark Schubert and Bill Thompson were two of those coaches that bought the first ones. We were excited as could be, and within about a week's time, both of them contacted myself, and they said, hey, it's a really neat idea, but they all came apart. We got a foot pocket and a monofin blade. It didn't work. And we didn't, we took that like, oh my gosh. But we made improvements. We improvised. We figured it out. And that's kind of the state of where we're at right now too. We're going to come upon troubled times. We're going to have difficulties in our lives. And all we can do is remember our own ingenuity, our own efforts, our own health and wellness, and know that we can persevere these things. So Quinn, Aaron, Kanan, thank you for bringing about this first session. I look forward to being a listener. And thank all of you for tuning in and participating. I hope we all learn a little bit of something each week. Thank you.
Thanks so much, John. So now I'd like to introduce our first guest. Aaron and I grew up swimming together at Irvine Novas in Southern California. We were a small posse of goofy age group swimmers. We had a lot of fun. We got in some trouble, and we swam pretty fast under Coach Brian Peirsol and later Dave Salo. Aaron and I have stayed in touch, and even though he's a little hard to track down while living in Costa Rica and staying off social media, we managed to talk once in a while and get together for some pretty epic experiences once in a while. Most memorably, one of my favorite aquatic adventures of all time, Aaron and I organized a swim down the Nepali coast of Kauai over a 4-day supported swim and camp. And if you want to see Aaron being goofy on the beach, I'll post a video in the show notes of that event. But really, beyond being a swimmer, Aaron is thoughtful. He's wise. He's introspective. He's a philosopher. He also happens to be the best backstroker that ever lived. And Aaron actually disputes this claim, but I'm going to show you why he's wrong in a minute. Aaron is the current world record holder in the 200 backstroke. He won 36 medals in major international competition, 29 gold, 6 silver, 1 bronze. He made his Olympic debut in Sydney in 2000 at 17 years old. He won a silver in the 200 back there behind Lenny Krayzelberg. His second Olympics was Athens, Greece. He got gold in the 100 back, gold in the 200 back, gold in the 400 medley relay. His third Olympics were Beijing 2008, gold in the 100 back, silver in the 200 back to Ryan Lochte, and gold in the 400 medley relay with a world record leading off that leg. In 2009, he broke his own 100 back world record and broke the 200 back world record. And I encourage everyone here to look up the world record progression charts. And in the history of swimming, you really don't see people who have left their mark on the record book quite like this. It's pretty unprecedented. So with that intro, I'm truly delighted to bring on my good friend, Aaron. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hey, Quinn. Hey, everybody. Yeah, thanks for having me.
How we doing? Are you safe? Where are you, Aaron?
I'm in Norfolk, Virginia, working on siding of a house at the moment. And that was very nice. And so to be introduced by Quinn, by you, is a pleasure for me, just because we go back so far. And I think it's a really neat thing that you guys are doing, bringing the community together, especially in a time like this. And at least opening up the conversation. And so grateful, and really nice to be here to do this with you. Pleasure.
Awesome, Aaron. No, we really are thrilled to have you. So, we have a couple topics we want to cover, but why don't you tell us what happened in 2009 when you broke both the 100 and 200 back world record? Just give us a little insight, just because it's such a big jump in the record books, and it was an off Olympic year. What kind of suit were you wearing? How did you feel about that kind of moment in time with about 12 years distance now?
Good question. I would preface it, I think, by saying that I had a very kind of obscure goal when I was very young, to go 151 in the 200 backstroke, and I always thought that was a pipe dream to some degree. You're shooting for the moon, and you'll get far if you shoot for the moon, but to get to the moon is a whole other story, kind of thing. And so everything that led up to that was really interesting and fascinating, and I think I hadn't improved much in my 200 backstroke for about 7 years. I'd only improved incrementally, maybe, I think in total about 3 or 4 tenths in about 7 years. And I during that time held the world record at times, and then at times I didn't. Ryan Lochte and I were kind of going back and forth for a number of years, and so the nature of that was always like I was getting to the big race and kind of feeling like there was still something left. And I think for those of you who've been swimming for a long time, you understand that hitting that point in the season where everything comes together at that big race is not necessarily something that happens all the time. And in fact, it's probably one of those things where if it happens on a handful of times in your entire career, you could consider that a huge success. And where it all comes together, where the stars align. And the stars didn't really align for a long time, but I understood that I was basically putting money in the bank, and I just had to kind of wait it out. I knew I was better than the times I was pushing out at these meets, and I guess you coupled that with I took a long break after the Olympic Games in 2008, which was very rejuvenating for me mentally and physically. And it's so important, and that's its own conversation. And then couple that, coming back, I was fresh physically and mentally, but you couple that with these suits that came in. And so it was an interesting year in that I felt really good, personally, physically, very good, and like I was actually reaching that potential. And then we were also watching at this time a certain kind of technology coming in, which made us very skeptical. At least you was hopefully making us skeptical and unsure of how to proceed. Records were falling. And first time I put one on, I came up at 10 meters and I laughed and I said, "This is ridiculous." I knew it was illegal right off the bat. Didn't take a genius to figure it out.
What did you feel like?
Unethical. I don't know if illegal is the word, right? But it's like you come up and you're like, wow, this thing is unnaturally fast. Just one thing to have a piece of technology on you, another thing to put something on you, and you just almost don't float anymore. It's like you sink to the bottom. You're so hydrodynamic, And but it was an interesting year, and so I remember the iterations of going through that. But I wore these legs throughout the summer. Can't even wear legs anymore. But you were allowed to wear a full bodysuit if you wanted to, and so that, I think, coupled with me feeling very good, led to that. And I'm very open and honest about that. That did that suit help? I think it did a little bit. Did. Yeah. I also know that I also felt really good that year, and they kind of putting like 2 and 2 together to some degree. And that being said, the time was what it was, and the record progression was a lot, and after that year, I think I felt like I'd spent my gas. And I looked at that, and it was just a personal feeling like I didn't really have the motivation that I was going to have. Prior to that, I felt somewhat like I had hit my own wall, and I went one more year, and the next year that I had was my international meet was in Pan Pacific Games in the pool that you and I grew up in Irvine, California, when we were like 10, through our teens, and so for me, that was a fitting way for me fitting place for me to hang my suit up, but it allowed me to go into my old hometown pool in an international meet, outside of an Olympic year, and hang my suit up, and so that in this, I guess, in the long of the short, so to speak.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah. So I can't help but notice some birds chirping in the background.
It's springtime.
Why don't you tell us who you're with and how you're spending your days right now?
So, well, we're all finding ourselves outside of our norm, right? And normally I'd be back in Costa Rica right now, and I was traveling through the States about a month ago, or a few weeks ago now. Time's blending together, I think, at this point. And I stopped through and visited an old friend, but a guy that I've known for a long time, and he was a gentleman that was around the swimming world on the national team and became friends with a lot of those of us on the national team, and I stopped through in between work, and stopping through turned into, well, I'm gonna ride this out with you, buddy. So I'm hanging out with a friend of mine. His name's Jack Roach. And
why don't you tell us who Jack Roach is, Aaron?
Good. Yeah, okay, I'll do my best. Jack had he had a title with USA Swimming for a number of years when he was hanging out with the national team or national junior team, and I don't even know what it said, but it was just a title to give him a title to make sure he could stick around the national team to some degree. It was like, head of this and that for cleaning up the bathroom or something like that. And it was like whatever title we can give Jack, just so we can have Jack around, and anyway, he was a fantastic teacher, somebody that a lot of those of us, my friends and colleagues, could call just a great friend, and somebody you could talk to, great coach. So he's been doing this for a long time. So I think, to sum it up in some way, what is Jack? Jack is like, he's the glue that holds something like a whole national team together, and is the unsung hero of it. We hear a lot of big names that are thrown around, coaches and swimmers and that kind of thing. And I think Jack's made a name for himself, partly through other people, and if he has, and I think he has, and so one of those people who's just incredibly altruistic spirit and gives back. But we have a lot in common. He loves the water, and like all of us, I guess, but rich sailing history and surfing, and so we kind of knew we'd be able to bide our time together if this was end up happening. And sure enough, we're kind of digging into some projects.
You're building a boat, right?
We're building a boat.
That's great.
Woke up one morning about a week ago, and it was kind of one of those things, and it's probably part of the conversation of why we're on, right? Is like, it's an interesting time, and I was actually even on with the national. We just had this this call with all the national team members from this call with USA Swimming, and it's a thing of like, what do we do now, kind of thing, and what is this, and it becomes a really interesting time, and there's a time to mourn and a time to grieve through something like this, and for people like you and me, Quinn, it's where we have a bit of an objective point where we're stepped out of it a little bit, and so there's something different it's hard to say how you'd handle it in the interim, but but I'll always say, I'll acknowledge, like I've been talking with a few people on the national team, and was speaking with Ryan Murphy the last couple of days, and his perspective is wonderful. And I think he went through about 5, 6, 7 days, and Ryan Murphy is a world record holder in the 100 backstroke, where he was just like, what do we do? What do we do? And it's a big unknown. And he's getting ready for trials and Olympic Games, and that's now been taken away, at least for now. And so he's gonna, he's like, well, I'm gonna go. He was gearing up. He's swimming the best season of his life right now, and he was ready. But the switch that flipped, where now he's just like, okay, nothing I can do about that. I'm gonna go take 2 weeks in Tahoe, and he's just like letting go and relinquishing a certain kind of control, right? And it's interesting when we think like, what are the things that are you can always count on. You can always count on the Olympic Games every 4 years. You think you can, and then you can't. And, it's obviously happened in the past. They just seem so constant. Yeah. And especially if you're not, old enough to even have been born during the last Olympic boycott in 1980. I went to bed the other night and was like, okay, these, interesting. This is something similar to what 1980. And then I was like, when was the last one? It was World War II, the 40s, 40 and 44. And then when was the one before that? It was during the teens, World War I, right? And it's like every 40, 35 years, it's up to now anyway. No normal trend I'm trying to promote. It's just, it happens. And it's happened anyway. And everyone's going to take their own way, but for me, it's these things of like a forced removal or forced break. At least from my take, ever since I was a kid, if I was ever injured at first, like say I broke a wrist, that's 6 weeks. At first I was like, what am I going to do? I'm in the middle of training. This is a huge disruption. And I always remembered coming back from it being somewhat grateful for the break. And it was, it was never opportune. And it's really hard to try to consider that kind of thing right now. And so maybe not even the correct stage to be able to process that. It's just, it's hard to see how these things unfold and the impact they have after the fact or during or after, especially in the beginning of it. And, but, there's also an element of like, for me, what is sport if not a way to throw you into situations you don't expect? Totally. How are you going to handle it? And it builds your character. And so what I learned through sport is I never was swimming for times or records. I found myself being put in uncomfortable situations when I wasn't expecting it. And then I was like, how am I going to handle that? And those are the interesting lessons. And it's an inconsequential way to fail and learn and grow. And so I think if the conversation can turn towards that eventually, I think it becomes fruitful.
Let's do it. I think it's so topical, Aaron. I mean, you have coaches around the world and swimmers who, swimmers don't take time off. They don't, a week or 2 weeks in between seasons, but it's just not in our DNA, and people are being forced to do it and wrap their mind around that. And you have a really interesting perspective, Aaron, because you actually took some time off at the peak of your career, and you took that time to learn something about yourself and use it for motivation. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those breaks?
Yeah, sure. And I'll qualify it that these were not forced breaks, and they tended to happen after the big release, so to speak, right? So I can tell you about that, but there is one thing that I had that think is a good kind of an interesting story that would be somewhat prescient, and that I did take breaks in my career, and I do think that there's an open conversation for that as we move forward. But you know, in talking with some youth in the last week and a half, swimmers mostly, and getting asked certain questions like, you know, what do I do now? And it's like, well, you know, you're so used to a routine, and your time's taken up all the time. You work and you school and you go to swimming, and then you study, and then you go to bed, and having this free time is foreign to you. And you get to actually potentially, you know, if you can't go to the pool, you're studying from home, and that time's going away, you get to actually go through this exercise of like, what do I want to do with my free time? It's invaluable. And those things end up, when you end up going back to something like swimming after having a period of kind of like a forced removal, there's an appreciation for it that you might not have ever had before, and you don't even really realize it. And there's a clarity when you go back and you start training after being removed from it. The subjectivity that you can gain from that removal is profound. And the first time I ever took a long break, I went back. I took 5 months off after an Olympic Games. I was told not to qualify that. I was told that wasn't a smart move, and I was going to fall behind. And I understand that. But I knew deep down that, like, you need a break from everything, even the things you love. You need a break. And I was 21 at the time, and my body needed a break. My mind needed a break. And so when I did come back, I didn't really do any much of swimming. I put on a lot of weight, and I was happy about it. I got made fun of for it, and didn't even know it until I got made fun of for it. And but I saw how tired my teammates were, how in the routine normally the people were, and the value of taking a step away and being able to look at the world that you actually inhabit most of the time and see it and be able to observe it. Yep. And the value in that is incredible. And it also you find that you end up growing as a person, your interests developing outside of something like swimming, because, you know, this is an interesting experience, but it's not permanent. Right. And these Olympics aren't canceled; they're delayed. Yep. And but if there was something that I wanted to share with relation to this, was this one time that I was in Olympic Games, and I was expected to win an Olympic gold medal, and I did. I won the 200 backstroke, and I get out of the water, and the entire crowd, I hear gasp, and I look up at the scoreboard, and I see that I was disqualified. And so it was this instance of, you don't plan for that, you know, you don't prepare for that, and you don't expect that, and there's no, like, I don't know, you know, like daydreaming of like this happening at the biggest meet of your life, you know, and practicing this as you're going through a set during practice. I wasn't prepared for this in the sense that I had run through it before, but all I know is that I look back on it as my favorite experience. It's strange to see that at the time, and it's hard to see that at the time. But the reason I bring this one particular story up, because it was at this particular time that I realized I felt something leave me. And it was a certain kind of thing of like certain things that I felt like I was in control of. I realized I absolutely was not. And there was so little that I was in control of. And I was able to walk back to the warm down pool, and in that little walk, I was able to understand, interestingly enough, that like I was actually quite content with what was going on and why, because the only thing I was able to really control was everything that led up to it, the process, and what I was learning along the way, and whether I was a good person along the way, and whether I was getting to know people and was a good sportsman. I was devoting myself. I loved it. I was looking after myself. I was staying healthy, just kind of like taking care of myself and also doing what it is I wanted to do in order to reach my full potential, because that was what was driving me. I just wanted to reach my potential. And then it was this feeling of like letting go of this gold medal, realizing like I didn't do this for the gold medal. I didn't do this for an Olympic Games. I'd be doing this anyway. And it was an interesting realization that I asked myself, would I go through all this again if I knew this was going to happen? And I unequivocally said yes. And I remember asking myself that question. And I even remember just it coming to me like out of the light kind of thing. And it just was like, I'll swim the rest of my life. And I let go of it. It was a strain. It was releasing. And it was empowering. I wasn't a part of the roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
That's their roller coaster.
Yep.
But to kind of like run through it all, I end up getting approached by a woman in white, and she goes, "Aaron, sorry about all this. I don't have much time to explain, but the medal's being reinstated in about 5 minutes." And I don't have a lot of time to explain, but you're going to receive your medal. You know? And I just looked at her and I was just like, oh my goodness, really?
That's amazing.
And I did. And the thing was it was just like all of a sudden I found myself in the seat of the observer, and I was able to walk over to the podium and look at like the other guys that were over there. You know, all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, like this isn't just me. You know, it was like, what happens to the guy who gets 4th place? He gets bumped up to a bronze for 45 minutes. You know, and the same goes for the gentleman who got 2nd place, Marcus Rogan. That's what we swam against in college, you know, for Austria. And he got gold medal for 45 minutes. And incredible sports, the way they handled all of it, man, all of it. And but we just were all like, no, it's not our roller coaster. It's not our circus. It's theirs.
Right.
And we were able to kind of put it all into a certain perspective where we just kind of looked at like what we were being given physically, this like thing you're putting around your neck, and just going like, oh, this is going to mean something very different to us now. It wasn't this thing I was going to go like prancing around kids anymore. And with kids, you know, it became this like very sobering, reality striking kind of experience. And then over time, it made me realize like that's why we're in sport. And it was so, that's what I take with me, like more than anything, you know. And so I see a moment like this, and what I see is a chance for growth for all the kids that are in it, and not just the kids, but the coaches, because this will continue, or excuse me, this will not continue. This isn't permanent. This is temporary, and things will reassess and shift, and obviously it disrupts things tremendously. Like it's more complicated than just we push it through a year. Like there are swimmers who are going to have a hard time even like making the living to be able to try another year. That they were hoping this was their year, and this is hard.
Right.
But this is also this is like where we what do you call it? You know, this is where we're tallied, so to speak.
Right.
And it's how we adjust. And so listening to Ryan Murphy talk, and he's like, yeah, man, we're gonna start getting ready for next year. So I'm gonna take a break, and I'm gonna slowly get back into shape. And I'm like, good for you, man.
That's
what
great.
else can you know? What else can you do? You know, and
That's such a powerful story, Aaron. It's such a powerful story. Your brief disqualification, having your medal taken away from you, and all of the psychology around that flashing before your eyes, really forces you to step outside of your normal thought patterns and figure out why you're doing what you're doing. And I think that's super relevant for right now. So what would your advice be, Aaron, for say a young swimmer today who's kind of struggling to recalibrate? They've been on a path, training day in and day out, and all of a sudden they don't have it and they don't know when they're going to get it back. Do you have any thoughts for them on how they might kind of learn from this, grow from this, find opportunity in it?
Well, great question. And I it's one of those things where I'm open to anyone's answer with that. And the thing that always helped me was when I wasn't sure what the next step meant. Usually meant I needed to take a step back, and I needed to become more of an observer for a moment, and before I moved forward. It's hard. You can move forward just to move forward, but it's good to, taking your time in these times of transition is potentially even more efficient over the long term than just moving in some direction or any direction, I feel like. And there's an art to that too, but I think this is a good time to really communicate with our community, to reach out with our friends, and we can do this now, like we're doing here. We can still see each other, even though we can't sit next to each other on a couch or that kind of thing, and be there for each other, and taking us out of ourselves for a moment, and putting ourselves along with other people, and gaining that empathy, and doing this together, sharing this is, for me, I think is valuable and a great lesson for swimming, because we're a team sport, and then we're not, and then we are, and then we're not. And it's important to keep reinforcing the aspect of how integral we are to each other within this. And if we're talking about swimming specifically, and but a good time for kids, for people, I think, to we have time to kind of do the things we might otherwise feel like we'd be irresponsible doing, like building a boat.
I love that. I love that, Aaron. So, Aaron, I want to get to some questions where people are super curious about a lot of things.
Sure.
So one question, you may recognize this name from Mr. Jeff Natalizio.
Oh my goodness! Hey, Frank Zio.
If you could make one technical change in your backstroke to be better, what would it be?
Oh, Jeff, gotta qualify that. Jeff and I grew up together. Quinn, and with Quinn too. So hi, Jeff. Okay, yeah. Rhythm would be Jeff and I. Jeff, I think we've gotten in that conversation before, but it would be like if we were trying to find a rhythm within the stroke, and which is very vague, but when I try to find one in the stroke, I think about my legs driving it, and not necessarily like having my legs. I'm not kicking any harder than I'm using my arms. I'm trying to use my arms and my legs equally, but I'm actually kind of like revolving what I'm doing with my arms around my legs. My legs dictate my my tempo, and they also roll my body. My legs don't just propel me forward. I actually use my legs to manipulate the water too, and like throw my hips around. So it's not just like kicking me forward, it's like kind of pivoting on my hips and my legs. And which is the beautiful thing about swimming. It kind of you can do multiple things at the same time, multiple movements.
That's good. I think a lot of people don't think about their kick in that way. I think that's a really innovative approach to thinking about technique in all strokes, really.
Another way to put it is like when a coach is, when someone says like kick harder, it's like that you got to be careful with that in my opinion, because if you're kicking your pull or out of sync, you're just going to tire yourself out. You're fighting yourself.
Right.
So it's like kicking smarter. And you're trying to work these two together so that they are literally you're harmonizing them both.
Right.
And you're sharing this load, and you find a rhythm with that. And that's I know a lot of drills that work with that. It's hard to do on a webinar.
well, let's think of another format for that.
Our gills are drying out.
Yeah, they are. Well, so that brings me to the next question, Aaron. What recommendations do you have for staying healthy, staying in shape during this period?
Good question.
This is from Grace McGee, by the way. Thanks, Grace.
Go. Well, I mean, I'm going to defer to. It's kind of like depends almost where we are. We're literally like geographically right now. In Costa Rica, we can't go on the beaches right now. Like if you're down there, you're not going on the beaches. In California, you're not going on the beaches, that's a big thing for me. And I'm in Virginia, and there are parts where there's just so few people, and so for me, I like to get outside, and if I can get outside and we can still do that and be away, keep our social distance. That being said, I gotta qualify. Like, I think it's evolving day to day, and it's like 2 days from now is a long way away with how things are changing. But another thing that I know that even if it gets to the point where I'm not getting outside much, we have dogs too. We have 3 dogs. We kind of have to. But yoga, I love yoga, and you can meditate. And that's a great exercise and a great thing to learn when you're inside. And if you can still run, I'm still figuring out just what is acceptable myself. So I sympathize with that.
Yeah, it's hard, and it's changing, right? And every region is different. So.
And I'm trying not to be, I'm like a lot of people too. I'll hop a fence to get to a pool. And I'm trying to be good about that.
You're trying to be good about that.
I am being good about that.
Okay, don't get arrested. Aaron Peirsol arrested for breaking into a backyard pool.
It would be a backyard pool.
That's great. So Aaron, I know we've talked a little bit about dryland. We have a question here from Ashutosh Barv. What dryland workouts would you recommend? And the question is actually for people who may be a little bit newer to swimming. And I know you've done some really interesting, innovative dryland workouts. So what are your thoughts on dryland?
Really good question. Core is very important. And qualifying that is like not just your abs, but the side, your obliques, your back. And I think from my experience and from the experience of a lot of those that I swam with, we were able to get stronger in our extremities if our cores were stronger. So we could get stronger in our arms and our legs if we were stronger in our core. And we're also healthier that way. We protect like lower back, which is so vital. And little techniques. I mean, equipment's really nice, So we played with like, I guess we played with like Swiss balls, and you can do dryland at home, right? So things like straps, hanging abs, and you can use things like YouTube, which is so fantastic to look up great exercises with like TRX straps or something like that, or Swiss balls, or for me, one of the best exercises that I ever came across, because I went to a college where there was track and field and really good track athletes and some of the best decathletes in the world, and they were strong. And so we shared a weight room with them, and they would do these. They were pole vaulters too, so they would do these things called bubkas. Sergei Bubka was a pole vaulter and best pole vaulter ever, I think, up until now. And it's just like these hanging abs. And we started off with our arms and little sleeves, and we would just draw our knees up. But before long, and it might have taken long, we were like throwing our legs up and over the bar and like connecting every little muscle to itself, and really similar to swimming. And just incredible, like the strength we gained just from being able to do that on land. That's a very specific exercise, but
so Aaron,
I still do that to this day, just because it's like that's the one, man. That's
it's really hard. Aaron, I actually still have a video of you doing those exercises from last June when I was down in Costa Rica.
Yeah,
and it's pretty incredible, and I still try to do them, and it still kicks my butt. Actually, I'd love to share that video in the show notes if you don't mind.
Oh, do it. No,
I think people would love to see it.
I would do it right here if I could have a bar.
You had a pull-up bar. Okay, we'll do it. We'll do another dry land episode. So,
good.
So Aaron, unfortunately, I think we need to wrap up a little bit. We're we want to hear from our Innovation Spotlight guest, Kanan.
Me too.
But Aaron, thank you so much for all of your insight. I mean, I just think there's such wisdom there, and it really is an opportunity to take a big step back and figure out how you want to be in the world outside of swimming, and then come back to it refreshed and with a healthy attitude. And I think that's a really powerful message right now. So thank you.
Well, thanks for leading the charge, Quinn. It's awesome that you're even, creating the platform. And so I appreciate that. And you too.
Thanks, Aaron. We'll have you back soon. So, all right.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. So moving on to our Innovation Spotlight segment, we have Kanan and his son Amit here. Kanan is an entrepreneur in probably the truest sense of the word. He's an engineer. He's a data scientist. He founded Aspirix, a software company that he's grown to over 100 employees. And over the past 2 years, Kanan partnered with 12-time Olympic medalist Natalie Coughlin, as well as the team at FINIS, to develop a breakthrough analytics app called Lane Vision. And what's exciting about this technology is it's not just new to swimming. It's new tech, and it's coming to swimming first. And I think that's truly unique. And this app, I think it's going to allow swimmers of all levels to improve without expensive equipment or high performance training sessions. We're kind of democratizing what was previously only available to the elite. And I also love about it the fact that it celebrates the journey of improving swimming. Typically in swimming, you have the end of the season and you have either a best time or you don't. You qualified for Olympic trials or you didn't. And what this app does is it allows you to create benchmarks along the way with hard data in your training, in your races. And I think that's a really special thing that we're hoping has a lasting and positive impact on the sport and gives people of all levels the tools. So with that, I want to welcome Kanan to the show. Thanks for joining us. Kanan, I think you're on mute. Uh-oh. Technical difficulties. Kanan, can we hear you? Uh-oh. Turn audio off.
For me, it's the audio button on top.
Yeah, do you see it, Kanan? Yeah, he's going to refresh and come back into the room. Sorry for the delay, guys. We're learning this new technology here, so bear with us.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Welcome,
Okay.
Kanan.
Thank you, Quinn.
Absolutely.
Before I start, actually, thanks, Aaron. Actually, I was so mesmerized with his speech and his positivity. Actually, so far, the last 30 minutes or so, right? Thank you. Thanks for. I just was totally mesmerized. Thank you. And
so, Kanan, why don't you tell us where you are right now, and also who is the young man sitting to your right?
Yeah, so we are in San Ramon, and I'm in Amit's room. Amit is my 13-year-old son, actually. So yeah, we are here in San Ramon.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us. So why don't? So I think what's interesting, and I touched on this briefly in the intro, but this is new technology, and I think swimming isn't always known for having the cutting edge technology first, and swimmers aren't always early adopters in technology, and I think that's why this is so interesting. So why don't you tell us how you got involved in the sport of swimming?
Yeah. So yes, sure. So basically, right, I'm bringing totally outsider's perspective for swimming in a way, right? So I'm still now learning swimming, and my son is trying to teach me. I'm right now in a stage where I can wear FINIS fins and have a board and kick around the pool in that level, actually. So so I can bring in a totally different perspective. Before I go into that, right, I want to start with saying a little bit of disclaimer here. I have a small problem or a handicap. I can sound positive in the worstest situation, in the worstest scenario. So I don't want that to be, taken as being insensitive to the circumstance now.
You were built for this moment, Kanan.
Yeah. So I don't want to be insensitive to the circumstance, and I'm sensitive to the people who are going through this problem and stuff. But I always sound positive, actually. So that is my problem or handicap. So with that disclaimer, actually, let me start with it, actually, right? So yeah, where I come from, I'm scared of swimming in a way, right? Basically, when I was in my childhood, the only way I could learn swimming is my cousins will take me to a big well and in 80s and tie me in a rope with a dried squash to keep me floated and throw me in the well. So I had to float in the well to survive. So I learned swimming, right? That's how, that's where I said, what? No, swimming is not for me, kind of thing, right? So now I'm trying to learn. So basically what I'm trying to say is I started learning swimming when my son started swimming, right? In his 3 or 4-year-old, actually, right? I started understanding what it is. And so to know more about swimming, I started training to be a stroke and turn, and I got myself certified as a stroke and turn to understand the sport, right? Because I didn't know the difference between a fly and a breaststroke, right?
So slow down. Yeah. So you became an official, you said?
Yes, initially, yeah. When my son started swimming,
right.
I became a stroke and turn official, right? Because mainly to understand the sport. Because I didn't know anything about it, right? I want to be part of my son's life, right? So I want to understand the sport first, right? So I started learning about it, right? That's when I thought I really got jealous about you guys, actually, right? As a swimmers, I'm totally jealous of you guys because it is so objective, right? The winning and losing is so objective. It is numbers, right? You don't have to make others lose to win, right? I don't know how much you guys realize, when you're in this sport totally, right? But from an outsider, I thought, God, these guys are lucky, right? So, for my win and failure in a business, God, so many factors involved. I can develop an awesome product, but the success of the product doesn't depend on any one factor, right? You work hard and swim hard, you touch the wall first, you win, you do well, you doesn't have, depends on any other factor, any other people. Or is it not saying, oh, you know what, you didn't swim neat, or you are no, it is objective, right? It's totally objective sport. That attracted me a lot because I'm a data guy, I'm a number guy. So for me, what? Wow, this is objective. This is very clear, right? One or zero kind of thing. That is lucky in a way, right? The people who involved in swimming, I was jealous of them, basically, because the success and failure was numbers, right? So that got me into this more, actually, right? And when son started swimming, and I got more involved in that, actually, right? So as Aaron was saying, always there's a downtime, always our downtime, or when you have time like this, right, where bigger pivots happen. So I was exiting a previous company, and I had some downtime. I was spending more time with Amit. I was sitting in the pool, watching his practices, watching his meets, and I had a downtime like this, and I was sitting around not doing much actually. So at the time, I was learning. The previous company was about sensors, and I was learning about sensorless technologies and other things at that time. And I was sitting along with Amit and watching the sport. And that's when I thought, okay, you know what? I had to start. Let me teach something to him, right? I had a lot of time in the summer. So we started saying, hey, okay, let us start something. I'll teach you how to start a company, how to start a business, right? Because I don't want to teach him anything else, right? And I thought I'll teach him how to start a company. And he immediately said, Dad, let us write a plan to create a swim team, right? So, okay. So we started putting a business plan, and we started creating everything. And in that whole summer, we said, oh, you know what? He's going to say, oh, I'll do this meet, that meet, how much it will cost to rent a pool or build a pool. All those things we started doing. Within a few weeks, we understood, it's not an economically viable thing to have a team and run it in a business sense, right? So it's not for economical sense of things, right? So at that time, only we realized actually, right? I was started looking at the sport more deeply. And one of the things is as sport is as objective it is in the results wise and the sport wise, the practice and other part of it was not objective. I started noticing it. That was not objective. That was all gut feels, and that was all about the things they learned for years and years, and there was less data. More than that, I realized there was no feedback for there's no much feedback for the people who are engaged, the swimmers, kids. For example, in other sports like tennis, they know when they win a point, right? Even during the practice, they play games. There is feedbacks. Whereas here, there is no feedback. They have to look at the black line, swim for hours. Coaches are coaching, 30 kids. They can't provide feedback to them every day for everybody, right? So they are, even though the sport is objective, the results are objective, the kids, without feedback, working on it, got my attention. I said, you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. There can be something else to it. That's one part. Another part is the meet results. Most of these kids, they go in the summer, other times, right? They swim a lot. They attend a lot of meets. The only thing that defines that meet success, again, the objective become a problem here, saying that it defines by only that one number. They popped or not popped, or that one number. But there is a lot more to that swim, right? If you give a transparency, given information towards that swim, I thought, that may be very good for the sport, actually. Like more data, more information towards that swim, or more feedback is a need. That's what I found, actually. And that's where it all started.
That's great. That's great. So I understand the need for more data. You as a data scientist, you really wanted more information to be more involved in your son's life. So tell us a little bit about how you created this. Where did you start? How did you bring in Natalie Coughlin? And tell us a little bit about the kind of building process of developing the app.
So yes, actually, sure. So that, as I said, right, we initially started planning towards, business plan for swim team, and then we thought about this problem. And at the same time, I was developing technology on the sensorless, computer vision and artificial intelligence based technology. I started developing at that time. Actually, I started looking at the technology of more on the computer vision and like sensorless technology, basically, right? My previous startup was fully on sensors. And I was looking at the technology and preparing myself for the next venture on the sensorless technology, right? So at that time, I was thinking about it. One of the concepts, at the time, we thought about this, without disturbing this objectiveness of the sport, how can we develop a feedback app or an app with a data science app or data science model, which can help with the swimmers without spoiling the objectiveness of the sport, right? That's where we decided to create a model. We called it Ideal Eye. Basically, it is about comparing yourself against your ideal eye, right? That is the base concept of the product we started developing.
So
right?
comparing, just so I understand, Kanan, it's about comparing yourself with your best version of yourself.
Exactly, about your ideal eye, right? So, model a data science model saying, hey, take for example, that we model him and create a model of him and put all the best practice of swimming or best techniques of swimming and say, hey, here is your ideal eye. Now compare you against the ideal eye and compete.
So if Amit hadn't breathed off the wall, what time would he have gone? Is that kind of what it captures?
Exactly. So the vision, at least, it is not nowhere close to be or nowhere close to the vision, but the vision, at least, right? If when he practices, his ideal eye will be projected in the water, in the bottom of the pool. So he will be racing against his ideal eye. That is the vision. Okay. So he will be racing against himself in the same lane. When the projection will be on the floor, he will be racing against himself. Is what the vision was, right? So we had a vision. Okay, we should create something like this, right? And Amit was lucky enough to have Ethan as a coach, Ethan Hall as a coach who was coaching him. He was very, very technical coach, and from 7-year-old, I think he's been coaching Amit, and I started talking to him, saying, hey, here is what my thinkings are. And he jumped on it right away. And because he's a completely technical coach, right? He loves, basically, he's very, very, very technical. And I'll go over it in a little bit later. So he jumped on it. And is Natalie's husband, actually, right? He introduced Natalie. And, Natalie also was so excited about the whole thing. And, we started this venture, and we joined. She actually joined, and Ethan, and we had really very, very good coaches like Joe Natina and Jake, so few coaches to join as an advisory group, and we started working on that, actually, right? So that's how we started, and then we started mapping the whole model, and we started preparing everything, and then at that time only we decided, okay, we need data now. Right? We need base data to create the model. So we were looking for an endless pool, and we were talking to different people and looking for an endless pool. That's when they said, FINIS had an endless pool. And that's when we came and met John. With John and our attitude, right away, the first day, it clicked, right? And then, he gave us the endless pool, and he gave us all the access to it. And we got like 50, 60 swimmers from the team and had them swim and record all 360-degree cameras and collect data, and started working on the model from that point. And then, of course, John started as an advisor from that point onwards and guiding us from there, actually.
That's great. That's great.
So that's where we started with the. Yeah.
So you went from having a stopwatch and a spreadsheet and tracking on me, and now why don't you show us a little bit about what you're using to track his progress now?
Yeah, sure. Actually, so right, that's where the models we started. Now let me go with the technology and the innovation side of it, right? Yeah. So when we started getting on the innovation side of it, it's okay. Now we have to use the innovation to develop the product, right? About the model. So we know for building that model, it needs much more. A lot of money actually to train the models and create an ideal eye kind of model. It will cost around like $4-5 million for me to develop the whole model, actually, right? So we want to go for funding and do that, right? So but all that, the economy of the swim market is not that big enough. So when I develop a technology like that, I have to be using it for all other purposes to make money out of that, right? Swim market is not big enough for me. That I realized it, actually, right? It's not big enough for me, right? So I have to do that. In the meantime, we thought maybe start, this whole bigger vision is good, but we have to start somewhere, right? We thought we'll start with a smaller step. Basically, one small step. One small step. We thought we'll create a mobile app, okay? An app which can sit in a phone or an iPad, where that anyone can use it, right? Anyone can go and record it and get some data out of that. Right. So in that data, we thought one of the key aspects of swimming, one of the things I was looking at the data point of view, right? the instantaneous velocity is a very key element of the data to judge the data model. Right? When I started working on the model, I can go one full session about how the model can be defined and other things. So in a nutshell, right, it is about drag and propulsion. The whole model has to define in a stroke, in a data kind of point of view, how much drag it creates and how much propulsion it creates. So propulsion has to be more than the drag in a stroke cycle. I'm so oversimplifying it. In a data point of view, that's what it is. A good stroke is create less drag and more propulsion. Okay, so
Yep.
Right, for that I need to work on the velocity. When I go looking around solutions, there are some solutions like you tie a rope on your back and swim, and bigger solutions. So quick or simple solutions to get the velocity. Right, it doesn't have to be like 100% accurate. I want it to be like 80-85% is good enough. Right, I want that velocity data to build these models, and velocity stroke cycle, instantaneous velocity kind of thing. That is when we started developing this small this app. Okay, so this app, then it started evolving in different directions to make it work for the people and use it. So the basic thing is now with this app, when the pool opens, in a way, of course, right, you can go, and it takes few steps. It's much better than tying up a rope in you and having it swim with the bigger equipments. But still, you have to go direct the floor and walk with them and record a video. You can get instantaneous velocity of a swim. Right? That means in the stroke cycle, you can see where your velocity goes to zero, where it goes to peak. During your catch cycle, in the middle of the catch, you can see your velocity go up. Right? When you are done with the finished with the with the catch, and before if you engage the other catch part, you can see a zero velocity, right? Like that actually, right? So Amit was able to see that. Ethan was able to show him. In at least 2 years back, I think, once, right, when we developed it for the first time, he can see that his left arm is finishing, right arm is not engaged yet. There's a zero velocity. When it showed him, he was like, yeah. And then immediately he started getting into the connection mode of like finishing and engaging the other one. Apart from
he had a dead spot in his stroke.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to identify it until he could see the actual velocity curve. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is easier to see, right? Good coaches like Ethan, they see it right away, right? But they try to explain to the kids, right? It's harder for the kids to understand because they are in the water and they are already trying so many things. They can't understand these details, right? The coaches, they say, okay, you know what? You keep trying, you'll know when you're 14 or 15, right? You'll understand because it's harder to explain to them, right? But coaches see it, they see it, right? But it's harder for them to communicate with the data. You can see it right away, right? So that is the difference. So that is the main point of this app, main highlighting unique thing about this app, that you can use it only when you use it, right? In a pool. But it's a one-on-one setup though. You can't do it in a race or anything because there is so many factors in the race and so many people swimming. It's hard to get this instantaneous velocity data in that racing environment. But we thought to make this app useful, the race data is key too, right? So we have modified the app to create a calculated velocity, but give all other data, right? Like stroke counts and distance per stroke cycle, all those things in a calculated way also in the race mode. So we started enhancing more features to make it useful for people to try. So now we created an app like with a much more useful functionality. Not only that instantaneous velocity, much more functionality to use it, right? But instantaneous velocity is the key, one of the bigger steps for the model I'm talking about, right? So I want to show some of the R&D stuff we tried to get there, right? So just give an idea of what we are doing and what we are trying, kind of thing, right? So this is Amit's thermal imaging and creating the model with a thermal image of the model actually, right? So but this filtering is, I'm still working on the filtering of getting the body temperature and the water temperature different to get the model out. So this is one of the things. And this is another one. I think it is Natalie's. So basically, if you look at it, right, we are getting the angular velocity using a camera, right? Depth cameras. right? So why it is key, right? This angular, right now, technical side of things, right? The velocity of a swim, a stroke defined by angular motion. How much? So we have to collect the angular data. So this is something, these are some of the R&Ds we are doing right now, on the innovation side. So here you see that same skeleton we are trying to track it during the swim, which is much more broken, and we're trying to get the angular data of the swim, right? So these are some of the things we are doing. Okay, so we are collecting.
Really, really neat.
Yeah, some of the things we are collecting, but still, right? This technology. One of the things is the technology is evolving, right? The more technologies are like all this technology are. This is, I think, Ethan. So more the technology is trying to do a breaststroke here. Yeah. So, right. So the technology is evolving, right? These are still not like like a stopwatch, right? It's not completely rock solid like a stopwatch, right? It is gray. It is it is growing and it is evolving. So but the swim world, right? With the swim world being more objective and stopwatch kind of technology they want. So this is gray, right? This is not 100% accurate. So we are developing it and we're working with the technology to get the model built so that it will be accurate enough to share. But the reality is, I want to show this as a reality check. So this screen I recorded from my Tesla. Okay. This that
your car dashboard.
Yeah, car dashboard, right? Okay. So it is Tesla. It's a $1 billion company and is spending millions in this technology, and on this equipment costs around 100K, right? The car costs 100K and stuff. But see this effect, right? It is trying to detect my car before me. You see it?
So it doesn't know whether it's a car or a truck.
Yes, it is confused because it's a pickup. it's a weird pickup. So it was so confused whether to detect it as a car or truck, right? So with 100K equipment and with billions spent on it or millions spent on it, right? The technology couldn't get it accurate. So we are trying to achieve that in a simple phone, right? So that is a challenge. Right, that is the challenge, So we are trying to get that's a computer vision, by the way. That what that car is trying to do, right? So we are trying to achieve that stroke detection, saying, hey, this is backstroke, this is freestyle, and we want to detect a stroke, and we are trying to achieve that using a phone technology. That is the challenge we are up against, right? So that's where we are developing. So whatever we have right now is like around 85 to 90% accurate, and we are still, evolving it, training the model. And we are doing a lot of innovation model designing also. So it is growing and technology is evolving actually.
So Kannan, just so I understand, it sounds like the more people that use this app, which is live as of this week, the underlying model will just continue to improve and get smarter and better and learn how the body is moving through water, and it'll make incremental improvements over time. Is that right?
Exactly. The model needs training, right? We have trained the model, keep training the model to get better and better and better, right? And there is some innovation. I have recently, if you in YouTube, you can search for my presentation. I did it on Apple Foundation DB, summit. So we are that more model training. There's an innovation going on now. We are developing a thing called micro model. So which we are going to release it later in next quarter. So which will basically train it for you specifically. If you used Nest thermostats, if you install Nest thermostats, it will train for your usage of your house, and it will get smarter every day with you. Right? Similar approach, we'll be using it in the app technology to train the micro models. So that basically will work more with your swimmers and because different swimmers are different, right? People are different, body structures are different. A Japanese swimmer, Chinese swimmer, and an European swimmer are different, right? So I can't build a universal model which will work for everything. So we are going to create micro models which will train with them and work for them better.
So if I have the Lane Vision app, it will customize in a way to my unique stroke and body type and learn how to better record my technique. Is that right?
Yes.
Wow.
So, but that training models plugin, it will come in next quarter to get it trained more. But yes, that is the plan. Okay. So
Okay.
that is the technology we are developing on to get it trained for you specifically and get it trained, and it will work with your thing. And the whole thing about this technology we developed also, right? There's a lot more to it. This whole ecosystem, it's only on it's in the phone, by the way. It is not taking your image to cloud to detect anything. It's not going to a server to do anything. It stays in phone. That is the innovation part. The whole thing is in the phone.
The whole thing is in the phone. So Kanan, I'm reading all the questions that are coming in, and people want to see the product. They want to see it in action.
Yeah. Basically, right. So one of the things I'll show you, but here I don't know how much I can show you. But this is one of the screens of some. Basically, this is a Mac app. So we created a Mac app to look at the data in the Mac. So we have phone and basically iPad apps and Mac app too. So the Mac app, just now I'm showing the data of Amit's 200 back. Okay. So the whole progression, something like in October, he was making 2 minutes, 19 seconds or something. Right now, in the last one, he made 2:12. The whole progress of the whole thing, and how many strokes he took on each lap, and what was his splits, and what is his tempo, what is his distance per cycle, what's his breakout. All the data is here actually. So this,
you should share the screen so we can see the app.
So okay, I thought I was sharing. Okay, can you see now?
There it is. Okay. So walk us through this. So what are we looking at here?
So basically, right, this is we call it gallery. So there is a lot more YouTube videos about more detailed functionality of this product. Actually, so we added tons of features in it. So it is for the people who wants to try and use new technology. So it is not, it's a lot more to it actually. So just look at the YouTube videos, and we'll have more training sessions and stuff. You can look at it. But here I'm just showing a gallery, which is basically showing Amit's 200 back. Okay, so it is from October, and I've been tracking all the events until now. Recently, February 29th, I think.
So each row here is a different race that's dated, and then what is all the data you're recording on the right?
Here we are showing splits, stroke count, tempo, distance per cycle, and breakout distance. These are the fields we are showing right now. But we have options to choose other fields also. These are the data we're getting. Swim velocity, what is underwater velocity, what are the turn times, breakouts, 15-meter splits, finish times. These are some of the parameters, right? So so you can choose. You can say, hey, I don't want underwater, I want the turn times. Okay, you can choose that and update it. Okay, what happened? Because I'm sharing, it crashed on me. Wait a second. Of course, any demo, right?
Yeah, of course. That's amazing data. I mean, I wish I had all of my races, and I'm sure Aaron would love to spend his days, instead of building a boat, looking back on all his 200 backstroke splits.
Yeah.
Aaron, would you have used this back in Nova days?
Absolutely. I mean, it would have been the technology would have been insane. Are you kidding me? It's just like, it's
okay, here you go.
hard to even fathom, so I want to see it too. Yeah.
Okay, so basically you can filter that and add the different fields, and also see, you have a 50 splits instead of 25 splits. We can have it as a 50 splits also, and then you can have it as 100 splits, and then this is the part, and then you can go into detailed data. Now we have a lot more detailed videos, basically to see it actually. So here, this is one of the designs. I want to talk about more about technology than the product here. So product, there are a lot of videos in our YouTube channel to look at it actually. So here, right, we displayed this data in a context sensitive way. Initially, we tried to display it in a bar chart, another way of displaying data, and finally ended up in showing it as a context sensitive. So you see, we are displaying data in that lane line. So we can say, hey, he broke out at this point, actually, right? In the 9 points.
Okay, so break it down for us, Kanan. Each one of these lines is a full stroke cycle. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a stroke, each stroke. You see each stroke, actually, right? So this is a stroke, and this is 0.58, 0.61, 0.63 is the tempo, right?
Right. That's amazing.
Right. And I promised Amit that I won't make fun of him, but still I have to. So here you see 0.73 here. You see here it will be a little bit slower tempo every time. Every time that's because he sees the flag and watches the flags and slows down. So we can accurately catch him and make fun of him.
That's funny. Can't do that, Amit.
So, okay. So yeah. So so this is the basically this is the beginning of the bigger things we're planning, actually. So this is a very, very beginning of the whole thing, right? So this is available right now in the iOS.
Yeah. So Kanan, I think the big question I have is how can people use this right now since everyone's away from a pool?
Yeah. Basically, I'm not a good guy, sales point of guy. So I'm going to, run is it okay if I run the video which Cody recently talked about this product?
Sure. I would love to hear
from he explains it better than me.
Cody Miller. Great.
Right?
Let's see it. Yeah. Yeah. Are you going to put it on, Kanan?
Yeah, I did.
All right. We're not getting the volume. Yeah, Kanan, we don't have the volume.
You don't have the volume yet?
Nope. It's okay. We can share it in the show notes.
Okay, so you can't see the volume yet?
Yeah.
You couldn't hear it?
No, I was suggesting we share it in the show notes afterwards.
Okay.
We can watch it.
Okay,
Yeah.
no worries. So basically, right, right now what you can do is actually right now, right, with the current situation where you can't go to the pool. That's the only reason. That's one of the reasons we released it, because the whole team and other people recommended us not to do it now, right? But we still went ahead and released it last Monday, mainly because we want to give an opportunity for the for the people, right, who wants to use it. Okay, so who wants to stay in the sport? Like we call them aspirers. In spite of all the problems going on, still they want to keep engaged in the sports. We want to give them something, right? That is why we went in a rush and released it on last Monday, right? So one of the main things they can do now is, without access to the pool, they can go and add their old videos, like whatever the races they have, and then they can pin manually. It's a little bit of manual effort. As I said, this is for aspirers, right, who wants to do something, who wants to use every tool they get to improve their sport, right? That type of people who can go and add their videos and start pinning them manually, right?
That's great.
So manually pin them.
Just so I understand, Kanan, you can upload a video and then mark your stroke cycles and log that as all of the data from a race or even a lesson or a practice if you have a video, right?
Yes. So the ones I was showing, all the videos are, these videos are taken from an iPhone, right? iPhone videos, okay, which I have loaded and manually pinned them. All this data are got from a normal, iPhone video, right? So we can have if you take from the video from here in this app, it will get much more data, but still the video taken from an iPhone, you can get all this data by manually pinning it. So that you can do now. Even you don't have to be in the pool. Whatever the videos you have, or whatever the old videos if Aaron has in a YouTube, we can go download it and put it in there and pin him and see what was his stroke cycle and what was his tempo when he was swimming, and get those data also.
Great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
hey, I just want to chime in for a moment. I know we tried to play that Cody Miller video, and I got to see it for the first time earlier this week myself. And if you are logging on and you have a chance to go watch it, the beautiful thing about it, and the beautiful thing about so much of what we've done as a company is when you get that aha moment. I mean, the aha moments are just, they're so fantastic when a person, has that breakthrough in their mind, like it's a holy crap moment. And Cody captures that. There's like a 4-minute video of him where I think he's genuinely blown away at how cool the technology is. So take a moment to catch that video. It's great stuff, Kannan.
Okay.
You're a star too.
Thank you. I'll try to see if I can put it in the other side and see in the video URL, right? Can I try that?
I think it's okay, Kannan. Why don't we move on to some questions, and then but I will send an email to all of the registrants with a link to that, so everyone can watch it, because it really is, it does capture the aha moment. I think that's really fun. So we have a question from Jane Hardy. Are you considering offering a coach's version so that they can use with their entire team?
Yes, very soon. Yes. So basically, right now we have a functionality called Coaches Review. Okay. So you take this video and you sync it to your own iCloud. Basically, it goes to your own thing. It doesn't come to our servers, by the way. It is secure, and all the video stays within your ecosystem. It never comes to our servers. Nobody has access to any of these videos except for you, until otherwise you share it. So we have COPPA compliant, and we developed it with all the security in mind, because I am developing it for my son. I don't want my son's video to be out anywhere. So I took care of all the security part. So, but you can share it with your coaches, right? And the coaches can review it. We have tools to review it actually, and then send it back to the team, right? So right now, Ethan and Ben and the coaches, basically, and Joe, they are preparing a case study kind of thing, which we will publish next week, which can be used by every team. How they can communicate to their team and send this app and have them pin their videos and send it back to the coaches, and they can review it. And also, we thought one of the reasons we released it also, right? Another reason is to include this coaches review is this can be a much needed revenue path for coaches in this time, right? The coaches can make revenue by reviewing those videos and charging for that, like personal reviews, one-on-one reviews for the videos, and make some money out of that also, right?
Wow,
so we have to give them a path, right? That's one of the reasons I rushed to this release, right? For me, it's a bigger risk to release now, right? People that don't have access to the pool, and I'm spending so much on PR and releasing this app, I know it's a risk, bigger risk to do, right? But still, I went and did it because people who wants to use it will have access to use it. They'll do it, right?
Yeah.
So I want them to give that opportunity. So now that use case study, will be releasing it next week. So where they can use it as a template to communicate to their team, and even that email template, everything we have. So they can send it as an email out to their team, and they can have them try the videos and connect to them and send it, and coaches can review it and basically send the reviews back to them. Coaches can use a Mac app to review it and send it back to the swimmers, and they can respond back to the coaches and communicate basically.
That's really powerful, especially at a time when I think there's a lot of financial uncertainty for teams and coaches, and it wasn't the most lucrative profession to begin with, but they're so important for building up the next generation of swimmers. So that's wonderful that they can have an opportunity to earn a little bit by coaching remotely. That's
actually. So yes, Aaron was saying right earlier, the swim community doesn't get a break, right? They are continuous, right? Even coaches, they go continuous, right? So they don't have time to step back and introduce a new technology or take in a new technology, right? This is a good time, right? We want to be a catalyst of the technology evolution up into the swimming part, actually, right? So this is a great time for the coaches and to use a new technology and bring in a new technology into their ecosystem, right? Yep. We are no way claiming it has to be the best or accurate or everything. No, we are also evolving. Work with us, right? We will create an amazing technical world. Actually, I am ready to spend money in technology, everything on it, if you can work with me, right?
That's great. I love that. Okay, so we have a question from a familiar name. Ryan Murphy wants to know, when is the rollout for Android expected?
So Android, okay, that is a bigger problem we are facing. It's already in the Android store, and they said published, but the last step didn't happen because of the Corona problem. They are having very understaffed, and we are not getting a response. It is any minute is the answer now. So the status says published and rolled out 100%, but still it is not out to the people. There is one last step somebody has to do there. It's waiting on it. So we've been following up with them. Their message is saying, hey, we are totally understaffed because of the coronavirus. It may take 7 days, but it's already more than 7 days. We are waiting on it. So it may be any time. It's on the Google's side of things. So as soon as it's available, we'll let everybody know.
Great. How accurate is the velocity data?
So I would say around we went through it a lot, and especially with the coaches like Ethan and who went to data and everything, we pinpointed the percentage. We are around 85 to 90% accurate. on this one, on the velocity side of things.
Great, that's great. Kanan, this is really, really special technology, and I think it couldn't be more exciting for the swim community to have access to regular data from practice, from meets, to track progress over time. And I'll say it again, just because I think it's really powerful. I don't want to wait to the end of the season to know if my training was working. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard to measure when a coach tells you to change the pitch of your hand slightly, whether that's having an impact. And it's so easy to kind of get in your head and overthink. But if you have a tool that you can look at daily, weekly to check in and understand where you're improving, where you still need to work, it's a game changer. It really will change how we think about improving our swimming. So I think it's really powerful. Kudos to you for being the technology behind this. And I know, speaking for FINIS, we're really thrilled to bring this to market. So thank you.
Thank you. So we are committed to this actually to make all the technology improvement, whatever the technology we can bring to the sport. We are committed to it basically because of, as you see, my son and people involved like Ethan, Natalie, and all the people involved with this actually, and the investor community, which I have very good support of, and all those. We are committed to this to do greater product and greater things, even though it may not fully make economical sense in just swimming. But we are committed to it, and that is why the pricing part also. I think John and me worked on it a lot to bring it down to the bare minimum, right? It's not for making money in a way, because even when we charged it $19.99, it won't make a profit for us in this one. So we stayed with a lower, just a bare minimum cost, so that we want committed people to be using it. So we are fully committed to develop this as a full-blown, complete data science based system, but we want people to be just get in and start using an opportunity to transform themselves into a technology coaches and technology based sport.
That's great. That's wonderful. I hope to see that, and I hope to be a part of that. It's really, really exciting. So Kanan, I think we're gonna wrap up here, but one lucky winner who submitted a survey response for what their silver lining is in this time of crisis is going to win a 1-year subscription to Lane Vision. So drum roll, please. Our winner for today, and I'm going to read their response, Nicholas Gaglioni. Sorry, I butchered that. Let me try it again. Nicholas Gagliano. And Nicholas says, I am finding some different ways to cope with the lack of pool time, like yoga, meditation, and dry land workouts. I am also taking the time to really explore myself and the ways in which I react to things that are out of my control. So that is a great statement and harkens back to our conversation with Aaron. So much is out of our control. There are some things we can control, and it's within ourselves, but it's also some new and exciting training tools. So I want to thank our guests. John, thank you for participating. Do you have any closing remarks for the group here?
I think my closing remarks are, let's be mindful of this time. Let's use this time to reflect on what we should be doing in and out of the pool, and put family out front right now. Let's follow the recommendations that are being put forth to us to flatten this curve. And everything we do, it's going to save lives. And at the end of the day, let's save lives. So when we get back to the pool, we can reflect on how fortunate we are. Pray for those people in need.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so important. Thank you, John. So before I close out, I just want to announce next Friday, we have our FINIS Friday Swim at Home edition with Chris Ritter and Charlie Peterson. And we will send you all an email. Please give us feedback, and please stay safe and have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. Signing off, First Friday. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, Aaron.
Thank you. Bye, Aaron. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Look forward to seeing pictures of that boat.
Yeah, you'll get them, John. Yeah.
Good.
Thanks for sharing all that stuff, you guys. Great.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Signing off.